Let's build a Data Studio community visualization, part 5. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add some configurations for features and stylings to your visualization. And later, we will do some basic styling based on the height and width of the chart. As our first features for the table, I like to create an option where we can choose how many decimal places we want to have for numbers, for currencies, and for percentages, as well as how the date should look like. We already prepared these options in the last video, and now we want to connect it to actual functions. First, we need to create the fields in the Style panel. Right now, they are only the ones from the example showcase we copied in the first video, but now we need to create new ones that are actually doing something. So for the decimal places, we need to create 3 fields, and also for the different elements of our date dimension. Let's look at the community visualization config reference to see the different style elements that are available. And I think for the decimal precisions, the white elements would be the interval elements, because they can only be integers. For our date format selector, I think the select single is the best option, because it renders a drop-down with predefined values, where we define like numeric or 2-digit or short or long, whatever is possible for the specific year or month or day, and so on. Now we create these elements in the config JSON. In the config JSON, we have the style section, where we have different areas with some elements like accent color or reverse color right now. And I want to create a new section here. We're going to copy this and make a new one. Let's do it like this and say the idea is decimal precision, and the label is the same. Decimal precision, and it also has some elements. And after we close the bracket, there should be a comma, so we don't have an error. And now we can start bringing some elements in there. So for decimal precision, I said the interval element would be the best fit. So we create a new element with curly brackets, and then we give it an ID. Let's name it DEC for decimal precision, and then we start with %, comma, and then we give it a label. We name it % decimal precision. Give that a like this. And we need to have a default value. Default value, which should be 1. Let's say, or maybe for percentages, I think for percentages I would make it 0. And we need to have some options here. And the options are always an array. And for the interval type element, we can say what should be the max and the min number. So let's make the min number the 0 and max number to, I don't know, like 10, like this. And last but not least, we have to define the type, of course. So we said it's an interval element, so it should be an interval element. So everything I just wrote, you can read in the documentation. So there's an explanation what could be in the options for the different types. And yeah, you just have to copy it and just try it out. So of course I have to write interval the correct way. But now I can copy this element and paste it 2 times more to have it not only for percentages, but also for numbers. Let's make the numbers decimal precision to 1, and also for the currencies, which is like currency here. And let's make this the default value as 2. So we have our decimal precisions, and now we need the date formats. So we go in here where we have the closing bracket of our decimal precisions area, and we make a new one with some elements. We can copy it to here, close the elements bracket and close this bracket and make a comma. And we name this date formats and label it date formats. And our first element should be the year. So I type in the ID equals year format. Label should be year format. The type should be select single, as we just said. And now we need a default value and some options. So as default value for year, I like to have it numeric. Default value should be numeric. And our options for year are basically just the 2 numeric and or 2 digits. So we type options and go with the brackets again. And the first option has the label numeric. And also the ID numeric, and the second option should be a 2-digit. I'm going to copy this to make it a little faster. 2-digit. So this should work. I'm going to cut to the part where I created the month and the date as well, and see you in a couple of seconds. And I'm done. I also created a month format with the options numeric, 2-digit, long, short, and narrow with the default value short, and a day format with the default value numeric that can also be numeric or 2-digit. Now we take a look at it inside of Data Studio. We are back in Data Studio and we check the style panel and see our decimal precisions are quite right. The percentage decimal precision is 0, but we can change it. Nothing happens yet, of course. And for our date formats, we actually see 2 of the 3 fields we wanted. So we might check the year element again. And it looks like the type of this element has an error, which should be select. And with this, it should work. So as the others are working, I will not check it again. Now we should check how we find these values in Data Studio. Let's check the console. And open this object, and inside the style variable, there's our DECPREC currency, our DECPREC numbers, DECPREC percent, and the month format is here, and the day format, and there will be the year format after we reload this page. So we find, for example, of our DECPREC currency, we find the default value and the value. And in our JavaScript file, we already are prepared for this. So let's scroll up to the variable creation, as we see it here. And we have the precision weights. And now we can change this to this data dot style dot DECPREC percent dot value. So just by doing this, we have connected our element with the variable that changes all the values. So let's copy this to our numbers and to our currencies and change it to numbers. I guess it's singular. Let's check it again. It is numbers. Okay. So we have to use this. And for our currency as well. There it is singular. And the same thing we can do with our year format, our month format, and day format. We can do the same thing here. So let's copy the code first and then change the variables. So how does the year format and month format look like? It is the idea month format and day format and year format. So year format should be year format, month format, and day format. So delete some semicolons. And now we can reload Data Studio and see what we got. And this is what we got. We can change to the style panel, and let's see if we change the decimal precision for percentages from 0 to 1, if it works. And this is looking pretty nice, I guess. Yeah, this is looking very nice. I can even go to numbers higher than 10. I'm not sure why that happens, because I set the max value to 10, but I'm not complaining. Can I go below? I can go to -1. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I assume that there is a minimum of intelligence for the ones who create this dashboard. And numbers also works pretty nice. And for decimal precisions of the currency, this is also looking very nice. So something is still weird, that we don't see any year anymore. And the date format here, we see the year, but there's no option. So I think there might be some other error that I didn't notice before. And let's see, So for this year format, we have our default value, we have our option with ID, and oh yeah, the ID should be value. Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to make it correct or it doesn't work. So let's save this and re-upload and we'll see if it works then. And we're back and we have dates now with years. Wonderful. And if we change the year format to 2-digit, this is gonna be a 2-digit date. Let's test it with the month. Let's do it with, there's no difference between short and long month, but maybe we can go with 2-digit. Yeah, we can go with 2-digit. And maybe with numeric. Yeah, this also works. Let's do a full 2-digit date here. Okay, for the day, this does not work. Okay, there should be 2 digits with this. So maybe we do some error there. Let's check it. So we go back to the code and see what the problem is. And it looks like, oh yeah, this is giving me the advice that the day format is declared but never read again. So I think I may have forgotten about the day format at all. Let's check if that is true. Here's the year, month, day. And yeah, the day format is numeric for every time. So let's replace this. And even for the other formats, they should be replaced as well. So now I replaced these and let's see if anything changes. And there we go. So we have 2-digit dates completely just as we want because we set the day format to 2 digits and not as an integer. So this is how you do these simple configurations. So next, we want to add some style configurations the user can do. I already created some fields for table header font size, for table body font size, for the body font color, for the header background color, and some field for free CSS input. You can see it in the config. These are the 5 elements. And you see font size header, which is type font size, default value 14, a font size body with a default value 12, a font color that has no default value, and this is important later. The same with the header background color that also has no default value, and a custom CSS field, which is a text area with a default value just being nothing. So we start creating some rules for the font size header and the font size body. We don't do this in the style since we cannot choose these variables in the CSS. We have to do it in the visualization JavaScript. In here, we create at the end of the function a new tag. I make it a variable CSS equals document create element style, and the css.inner HTML should be our CSS. And now we can type our CSS rules with some JavaScript in between, row by row. We start with our font size of the header, and we go with TH as our selector, and this should have the font size. And then we have to break the quotes and go, let's do it like this, do 2 pluses, and put the visdata dot style dot font size header in between. And we want to put the value of this. So after this, we have to append it to the body the same way we appended our table. So let's use it like this. So if we want to add some other CSS, we can do it in the first row, or we can add a new row. I like to add a new row just like this, with the plus at the end of the row, and then I add something here. Let's say we copy this CSS from the header and then just change it to the body. And instead of the TH, we want to apply it to the TD. So we are back in Data Studio, and let's see if it works. So it doesn't seem to work very at all. Let's see if the body works. No, this does not work. So we choose 14 pixel here, but nothing works. Let's see how the data looks like if we select anything there. Let's go to the styles section and to our font size body. And there's no pixel in here. We select 12 pixel or 14 pixel, and it's only 12 or 14. So we have to set the pixels in our code. So maybe we add this here and then it should work. Let's see. Let's do it with pixels. And maybe some semicolons for later. So let's redo this. So now we're back and the table looks a little different. There is something going on with the sizes, just as we wanted. So let's check if we set the header font size to like 14 pixels and it gets bigger. Yeah, just as we wanted. Okay, let's do it again for the body size to 20 or maybe very small. Both is working very nice. So let's reset these to 14 and 12 and continue with the font color and the background color. Just to put it back in your mind, with the font color in the config, I haven't really set a default value, and I did this with a reason. This is because I want to use the theme values if font color and background color are not set. We find the theme values in our console, in the theme object here, and we see all the different theme settings. So for our colors, we need the theme font color, which is black, and the theme accent fill color, which is some gray, I guess. So these values should be the default values. And if they change, I want to change the default values of my table. Doing this is not that complicated. In the code of our visualization, we just have to put a variable before we fill the CSS. Let's check again the IDs of our elements. So we have the font color element. Let's copy that to this area, and we have the header background color. Let's copy it to this, and we also want to check again our console. So we have the theme accent fill color that is equal to this one, and we have the theme font color that is equal to this one. And now we can make a new variable with font color as its name and say this should be either our visdata dot style dot font color dot, I think it should be the color and not the value. Let's check it. it is the color for this theme font color, and for the styles, I guess there is no value, of course, but it is the color and not the value here as well. So we use the color attribute, and if this is undefined, we can do the pipe and use the visdata.theme font color instead. So this way our variable is either our font color that the user has actively set, or as a default the theme font color, which is always there. We do the same thing for our header background color. I can delete this now and copy this and say this is the header background color, and we use this here and this over here, and this should work. And now we have to include this in the CSS. So in our TH, we want to have our header background color. So we set the background color with plus, and then we set it to the header background color. And in the TD, I want to set the font color the same way. I'm going with color, and then I use the font color. And we see if it works. So we see something has changed. Our header background has some color right now, which is based on the theme. And if we change the theme settings over here, let's make it a new component background. This works pretty well. But now let's override this with our style settings. So let's do another. I played around with it a little bit, and as you see, this does not work at all. So there's something wrong right now. The same thing with the body font color, and we have to check this. So we start with the console again, if we did it right. And we check the style. We have now some values. And there's a font color, and in it we see a value color. I don't think we have this value in our code right now. Let's see if we have this. No, we went directly to the color here. So we put the value in between, and the same thing here. Okay, second try. And this is what we got after I fixed another typo error where I put values instead of value, but I didn't show you this. So this is what we can do now. We can change the color to any color we want. We can reset the color to make it back to the theme settings, the same with the header background color. And we can set it to any color we want as well. Okay, last thing is the add CSS rules. So if we want to insert any CSS, we should be able to do these as well. This is pretty easy. We just have to go into our code, check the name of the CSS field, which is custom CSS. And then we create another CSS field. Let's name it variable custom CSS equals document create element. and another style element and say custom CSS dot inner HTML should be this data dot style dot custom CSS dot value. And after this, of course, as always, we need to append it to the body. Yeah, like this, and see if this works. So now I want to test if it works. Let's go to the add CSS rules element, and then we can test a simple CSS rule, which is TD, and we want to change the font size to 20 pixels. And it works. So we can do any CSS we want now. I think this is a good addition to any visualization in Data Studio. The last thing I want to show you today is working with the height and width of our visualization. I made a change where I put an equal width to every column, depending on the width of the whole chart. And I want to stretch out the height of these rows a little bit, depending on the height of the chart. You can do this with the library because there's a function for getting the width and getting the height called dscc get height and dscc get width. In the code it looks like this. We have some new variables for width and for height with the dscc library calls, and we have a method to get the number of columns in the table to even everything out. So there's the dimension number, which is the length of my dimension array. There's the matrix number, which is the length of the matrix array. And if we have comparison, we calculate the matrix number by 2 to get all the metrics and the comparison metrics. At the end, we add this up, the dimensions plus the matrix equals our columns. So we use this in CSS with the t-head th and the t-body td. So basically all our cells should have a width that is the width of the whole chart divided by the columns. We round this and set it with pixels, and we set the word break to break word. For the height, we set the height for the whole custom table, and we set it to height minus 2 times 50 because we want to leave 50 pixels for the header row and the bottom row. Just as you see here, we need some 50 pixels-ish for this top row and for the bottom row, and the rest can be our height. And that's everything I wanted to show you today. We now talked about the most important things you need to know for creating your own visualization. In the video description, you will find a download link for all the files and codes I created until this point. In the next videos, I will jump further in the process of creating my visualization for some more advanced features.